morning and welcome to Atheist Talk on KTNF AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Good morning to all of you joining us locally by radio and streaming online. We appreciate you tuning in. Today is Sunday, August 4th, 2019. I'm your host, Hertzie Hertz. Here with me today is Charone from the Habeas Humor podcast. Today, we were planning on talking about the separation of church and state, and we are still hoping to get to this. However, with the news this morning, because I woke up and looked at Facebook, which apparently is a mistake, we are also going to talk about the recent mass shootings. This is an open conversation. We welcome and encourage listener interaction with your phone calls to 952-946-6205, your emails to radio@mnatheist.org, or you can tweet us or check out the Facebook page at Atheist Talk. The number is only available when we are live, but you can always email or tweet whether we're live or whether you're listening to the podcast. Charone, welcome to Atheist Talk.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say, I would say good morning, but like I said, I woke up and I checked Facebook because I apparently had like 60 things, and I was like, 60 notifications, what happened? And they were all like number of people liking a thing or commenting on a group or something. And then so I scrolled through and I went, oh, in the wee hours of the morning in Dayton, Ohio, we had our second mass shooting within 24 hours. 9 people have been reported dead, and I honestly don't know how many have been injured. But we'll say at least a dozen. I mean...
It's just that's a safe estimate.
Safe estimate nowadays.
Yes, when you get a lot of notifications on social media, it's either somebody really liked your cat photo or, there's been another mass shooting.
I'm always for the cat photo. I'm always hoping it's the cat photo. It's never the cat photo.
Oh.
Yeah.
I had to check with my boyfriend and make sure. I mean, he lives in Ohio, not I forgot where the heck Dayton was.
I never started knowing. I just knew it was in Ohio, and I was like, okay, how close is this to Columbus? Because I know we both listen. I think we both listen to the same podcast with a person who lives in Ohio. Yes. And then actually going to one of their live shows, I met another person from Ohio, and I'm like, oh, please tell me they're safe.
Right. And I mean, and shooting at the Gilroy Garlic Festival, I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area originally. The Gilroy Garlic Festival is like, if I was back at home, I might have been there, that's a huge thing. And it's just crazy.
For those of you who don't know what that is, my guess is it would be like the Tall Ships Festival in Duluth, but with more people.
Yeah, well, Gilroy,
or that one year it was really crazy.
Oh, I've actually never been, other than driving through on Highway 90 when I was moving from California, I've never actually really seen any of Minnesota. So I'm all for, if you want to show me that, we'll come hang out.
You want to see the Tall Ship Festival? Or you just want to see
Tall Ships?
It's ships. Yeah. The year that I went, which was the year of craziness so what happened is they were supposed to have a Viking longship that had actually sailed about what Eric Redbeard would have, but that got canceled for some reason. They had the giant rubber ducky, the symbol of peace, which that was the number one reason I went. I am a huge fan of rubber duckies. I have a trunk full of rubber duckies.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's cool. So yeah. So do you like Ernie or just the rubber duckies?
Just rubber duckies. Like if I go through, I'm pretty sure I have most of a nativity scene with rubber duckies.
Oh my God. Have you ever posted that? I got to see that.
No, because honestly, they're all in a trunk right now.
Oh.
Yes. So part of the problem.
Free the duckies.
Part of the problem is I don't organize myself well. So I need.
What? I've never heard of anything like this.
Yeah. My ADD makes that a little difficult, and then stuff and things and time. So the rubber duckies are just in the trunk. So one day I will be able to start doing more with them. But back to our Minnesota. Yes, if you want to come to Minnesota, I'm more than happy. There's all sorts of stuff. We'll even go to the Mall of America.
The Sin Cities? Is that what they call them in Drop Dead Gorgeous? Because it's like the Twin Cities.
The Twin Cities.
The Sin Cities. They call them the Sin Cities because they were like uptight Christian people. They were like the Sin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. My ex was from a middle of nowhere, Minnesota, and he said that people called it Murderapolis. Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm like, I grew up in the middle of St. Paul by Snelling and 94, which is kind of a midway point between the two. And a lot of people have stated, oh, that's kind of a not great neighborhood. And I was like, nah. I mean, it's like any city. You got better parts, you got not so great parts. But, Well,
I mean, to bring it back around, a lot of people talk about, what about Chicago? Like when they talk about the hellscape that things will be if we have gun regulations. And the thing is, like, how many people live in Chicago and don't get shot,
Lots of them. And here's an interesting part about Chicago, because people will always point to Chicago. Chicago is super close to Wisconsin, which has very lax gun laws. And I think there's a couple
and many other states that do. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not all that hard to figure out, a couple of people getting into a car. And this isn't even a road trip. This is like, 2-3 hours out, and you can get yourself all the guns you want and return.
Yeah.
Just because the city, tries to, because it is not large enough to cover enough area, it's not going to work. We need something that goes bigger.
Well, what I heard on conservative Twitter is that undocumented immigrants are bringing in guns. They're all gun runners, and it's a big business.
So I don't know. I don't know if you know this, but our listeners, our regular listeners, certainly do. I do accounting, and it drives me nuts when I hear things like that, because how many runners would you need it to be to actually get the supply to the demand of America? It's not feasible for these people to have the guns or cocaine in their system. Now, for little stuff, I get it. But it's like most of the drug trafficking that goes on, and I'm sure most of the gun trafficking that goes on, is going to be done at the flipping warehouses in those big cargo things, because that is how you get the supply to the demand. There isn't enough immigrants coming over for this to work. We would have a drug crisis, so to speak, if we were relying on people running.
Well, everyone can get two, wear them in their belts, and then they got to carry those big bags of marijuana.
Oh, God. It just... that's not how any of this works. And
I don't know how any of this works.
It's like, I'm not a person who's an expert at this, but I'm looking at it going, no, you can't do it with that many people. You would have to have you would have to have an exodus, of people coming over who aren't reporting themselves to the government for asylum. That's another big part of it.
Yeah. If they really had so many guns, we wouldn't have this concentration camp problem, would they? Or so the conservatives say. That's always the thing. Hey, if you guys had guns, we wouldn't have a Holocaust.
Oh, that's another great one. Yes, the demonized culture is going to just, be able to get themselves free. That'll work.
Well, that, or you have I mean, there were uprisings.
Oh, yes. I'm not saying that it would have.
But yeah.
Yeah.
There would have just been, clearly there would have just been more people killed. It would be nice if, like we always say, what if everybody in Germany who didn't approve of the Hitler had actually fought? And yeah, that would be great, but it would have also been a civil war and a lot of people dead.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd say the same number of people dead, but it would still be a lot of people dead, just dead in a different way.
Right. Well, it depends on who won. Usually the government has the upper hand. They got the more weapons and the
tanks.
So, yeah, tanks.
Yep. So, yeah, I think movies sometimes kind of like they give us this idea of what we can do, and that idea is not always gonna work. And it's one of those where it's like, how do we get this into how do we look at this and go, okay, we don't have tanks and we're probably not going to get tanks for a long time. How do we move that?
Well, we just need a clever plan, a montage of doing.
Gonna have a montage.
Yeah.
But then with these mass shootings, everyone says, "Oh, well, if we had more guns, this wouldn't have happened." And I'm like, how many of us can shoot straight?
Not me.
Nope.
I can't hit the broadside of a barn.
I have hit the broadside of a barn because I was really close. I mean, if I had missed the barn, it would have been pretty bad. It would have been embarrassing.
So there was no animals in the barn?
No, the barn had collapsed years ago.
I think we're going to commercial.
We are, sad face. Well, please stay with us through the break. We will return to Atheist Talk with Charone from Habeas Humor, and we will continue talking about the recent things, and hopefully get to that separation of church and state, which I'm sure ties in somewhere. This is AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
I'm Richard R.J. Eskow, and this week on the Zero Hour, we'll be discussing political corruption, Wall Street shenanigans, our corporate overlords, digital dystopia, and maybe throw in a surprise or two as well. All this and more on the Zero Hour every Sunday night from 9 until midnight on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Crazy about pets? We are too. The Pet Connection Show is a great venue for fun, informative, and creative conversations about pets. Join myself, Kathy Menard, and Dr. Nicole Parole, along with guests who are leaders in the dynamic and growing pet industry, as we discuss healthcare, relationships, behaviors, and even political issues as they relate to our pets. So come, sit, stay for the Pet Connection Show, Sundays 11 a.m. to noon on AM 950 Radio, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Mike Pavantonio from Ring of Fire. Ring of Fire is a direct, smart, and I gotta promise you, a fearless progressive talk show. Join me, Mike Pavantonio, and my co-host Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Sam Cedar as we take on the large corporate conglomerates and that radical right-wing media that dominate America's airwaves. Ring of Fire, Saturdays from 3 to 6 and Sundays from 6 to 9 p.m. on AM 950. It is the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, my name is Mickey McCabe, and I'm the owner of Cucumbers Restaurant at 75th and France and Edina. If you've never been to Cucumbers, it's a buffet-style restaurant with a huge variety of salads, homemade soups, bakery items, and hot entrees that change daily and nightly, plus our always fresh fruit and delicious ice cream. We're open for lunch and dinner, but Sunday brunch is my favorite time at Cucumbers, with scrambled eggs, waffles, French toast, bacon, sausage, baked ham, chicken fajitas, brunch potatoes, warm gooey cinnamon rolls, and many other items to choose from. It's no wonder why Cucumbers has always been a popular Sunday destination. So whether you're looking to skip Mass, someplace to go after Mass, or just great food to maintain your Mass, Cucumbers is the answer to your prayers. Bring in your church bulletin or Minnesota Atheist newsletter and receive a $2 discount off the buffet price. Cucumbers, one heavenly buffet at 75th and France and Edina.
Don't believe in God? Join the club. Humanists, atheists, and freethinkers have joined the American Humanist Association since 1941 to advocate for progressive values and equality for non-theists in America. Located in Washington, D.C., the American Humanist Association lobbies Congress on humanist issues, protects the rights of atheists in the courts, and supports more than 140 local chapters. Visit us at AmericanHumanist.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter to learn how you can join the club today.
Welcome back to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. You're tuned into Atheist Talk. I'm your host, Hertzie Hertz. With me is Charone from Habeas Humor. Atheist Talk is produced with funding from Minnesota Atheists and Cucumbers Restaurant in Edina, Minnesota. Please consider visiting our sponsors, and if you do, let them know you appreciate their support of Atheist Talk. If you'd like to advertise on the program and help keep us on the air, please contact us at radio@mnatheist.org. As for the here and now, if you'd like to get involved with the conversation with Charone and I this morning, you can call us at 952-946-6205. Email us at radio@mnatheist.org or tweet us or use the Facebook at Atheist Talk. Charone, while we were on commercial break, Sam let me know that we actually had a caller who just wanted to drop a few words, didn't want to be on the air. But he was talking about the Garlic Festival, and he said, and Sam, correct me if I say this wrong, there's a Castleville Artichoke Festival?
I think he said Casterville?
Wow.
Casterville. There's an Artichoke Festival in Casterville, which sounds fascinating.
So that is in apparently
Yep.
In Monterey. Interesting. I've never heard of that. I've never even heard of Casterville. I mean, Monterey is, it's part of the Bay Area, although we don't usually think of it that way. I know this is not the point.
Well, I was going to say, but I mean, now you have another thing to check out.
Castroville.
Castroville. Okay.
That could be it, yeah.
Yeah. And he also made a mention that I think is very, very interesting and poignant that, it is one of the things where we look at going to these festivals now and it's like, do we want to go to, the State Fair of Minnesota is a huge thing with millions of people who come from all over the country. And, I haven't been for a long time, mostly because I don't like the crowds, but it is one thing I look at and go, do I want to go again? I mean,
this is exactly what these terrorists want. For people to be afraid, and it works, because people are afraid. And is the answer, everyone just needs to bring a gun?
No. There are too many people at the State Fair for that to work. Everyone,
gosh, can you imagine?
The crossfire would be terrifying, and then everyone thinks that they're the hero in this movie, and then nobody knows who the bad guy is.
Right. Oh. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. It's one of like 100 reasons why it's just not a good idea for everyone to be carrying around a gun. Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah. So what were we talking about before? Let's talk.
I think, as soon as, once this is bad for business, right now, mass shootings are good for business for at least the gun companies. Their stock goes up every time you have one. Once, if it should get to the point where it's people are afraid to go out and spend any money at places because they're afraid, maybe in California in the 60s, what it took, because it used to be an open carry state. What it took was the Black Panther movement in the 60s, where black people were carrying around guns, big guns. And then the state was like, you know what? We shouldn't have this.
Which is also interesting because that is a very racist way to go about that.
Well, isn't it always?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I was talking to somebody else, the NRA was really, before the 1950s, the NRA was very much about gun control and such. And they're like, yes, but that was because of racism. I was like, that's not good. I mean, it's not good that their reasoning was racism. It's one of those, there is a slight question of ends and means and such. And it's one of those, I'm like, I would rather have good ends and good means.
Right. Well, if a law is racist, it may be neutral on its face, but if it was, it's the way the laws are enforced.
Mm-hmm.
And if something is, if you have the society that's racist and they only, they may write a law that applies to everyone, but they only enforce it against, minorities or whatever, or, we could talk forever about the justice system and how the prosecutions are, disproportionately minorities and the sentences are harsher and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah, we could talk for a long time about that.
And what's apparently driving these shooters is usually racism. Like
Mm-hmm.
the guy who did the Walmart, he apparently was mad about, what was it, people mixing with other races, or
I know it had something to do with Hispanics, and it was just
yeah.
It's one of those. I'm like, really? That's your entire reason? Ugh.
I'm willing to have a conversation with right wingers, like why don't we take guns off the table and think of, can we agree that maybe we've got a racism problem? How might we be able to fix that?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say you're nicer than I am. I don't think I could do. I've done a debate with a person who is with a Christian, and I was like, nope, this is not for me.
One of my
I don't typically. Mm-hmm.
One of the arguments I hear often that just really kind of grinds my gears is the mental health argument. We just have a mental health problem here in America. That's what we need to be focusing on. And
okay, so from what I know,
once again, I'd be happy to do that, but
yes.
No, we can't have health care either.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but if you look at the actual history of the mass shootings, especially recently, it's like, and not recently too. Let's go back. One of people. If you look at it, there's been one woman, one black man that I know of, and the rest of them have been very, very far right, militant-y type, racist, and having manifestos or incel movement, all of these things. And the black guy was, so I like true crime and serial killers and such, was the DC shooter. And all that was to cover up a murder of his ex-wife. And the one woman did have quite a few issues, but that was the I Hate Mondays,
Yes.
Yeah. I actually listened to a thing about podcast about her, and she actually has been like, if I started, this whole thing about the shootings and stuff, I'm really sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think she was the first school shooter. Yeah.
Plus, there's a mental health isn't only, there isn't only mental illness in America. It's a worldwide thing compared to America. I was just looking at it. I forget the numbers, but I think it's like 120 guns per every 100 people in America, which is just far beyond any other country. Like we're the only country that has that many guns per capita compared to mental illness, which is pretty even across the world. So that's where the problem's coming from, not mental illness.
Though I will state, with the upcoming generation, I would not be surprised if we have a heck of a lot more PTSD. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the psychologists say, because a lot of these kids, nothing may have happened to them even close to their school, and they're still being affected.
Mm-hmm.
So we are about to go to another commercial break, but you know what? Next 2 segments, let's talk about that separation of church and state we were going to talk about. All right. We'll return right after the break with Charone from Habeas Humor. I'm Hertzie Hertz, and you're listening to Atheist Talk on KTNF AM 950.
I'm Candy Brothel, publisher of the Twin Cities edition of Natural Awakenings magazine and host of Green Tea Conversations, a new show for people who are on a journey to take responsibility for their health and play a more active role in their family's well-being. Join me every Sunday at 10 a.m. as I interview local experts who share the latest in natural holistic approaches in a fun and informative way. So grab a cup of tea and join the conversation as we awaken to natural health. Visit us at naturaltwincities.com.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Ken Hageland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, inviting you to listen to our new show airing on Saturdays from noon to 1, where we talk about your health and your life and provide insights to living and aging well. Each week, we provide answers to important questions regarding health care, elder care, end-of-life care, and caregiver support to help you and your loved ones plan for the future and enjoy your highest quality of life today. Please join us every Saturday from noon to 1 for Living Healthy and Aging Well.
Atheists, secular humanists, and free thinkers. Here you are listening to the Minnesota Atheists Talk Radio Show, Atheist Talk. We hope you are enjoying it. If having a frankly atheist perspective on the radio waves appeals to you, please consider making a contribution to our radio fund. Our contract came up for renewal, and we need your help if you want the program to stay on the air. That will make sure that you can continue to have opportunities to hear interesting speakers with non-religious perspectives, and you can call up and ask them questions too. Get the details on our website at minnesotaatheists.org, where you will find buttons to make it easy to make a secure donation through PayPal. Or, if you have a business and would like to reach an intelligent, progressive audience, please contact us through our website. That's minnesotaatheists.org. Or call us at 612-588-7031. If you are interested in us, we are interested in you.
Don't believe in God? Join the club. Humanists, atheists, and freethinkers have joined the American Humanist Association since 1941 to advocate for progressive values and equality for non-theists in America. Located in Washington, D.C., the American Humanist Association lobbies Congress on humanist issues, protects the rights of atheists in the courts, and supports more than 140 local chapters. Visit us at AmericanHumanist.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter to learn how you can join the club today.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Sam Turnberg. Today we could see some showers, but mostly sunny with a high near 88, while tonight's mostly cloudy with a low around 68. Tomorrow, storms likely with a high near 84. Tuesday, sunny with a high near 84. And Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 83. Join Country Financial for the 2019 Minneapolis Farmers Market Chef Challenge. This Saturday, August 10th, a couple of local chefs will compete for the title of Master of the Market. The event starts at 10 a.m. and it's at 312 East Lyndale in Minneapolis. More info at mplsfarmersmarket.com.
Thank you for tuning in to Atheist Talk on AM 950 KTNF. I'm your host, Hertzie Hertz, and we were having what I would classify as a fascinating conversation with Charone from Habeas Humor. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation with Charone and I this morning, you can call us at 952-946-6205, email us at radio@mnatheist.org, or tweet us at @atheisttalk, or check out the Facebook page. Before we continue the conversation, there's some housekeeping I need to attend to. I want to note our group of dedicated volunteers and the generous donations of you, our listeners. You help keep Atheist Talk on the air and in podcast form. And I do want to apologize to our patrons and to people who listen to the podcast. Yes, it has been slow to update. We've been going through some volunteer stuff. This is a stressful job some days. If you do want to volunteer, check out radio at mnatheist.org. You can also email my personal, which is Hertzey, HERTZEY @gmail.com. We could definitely use some more volunteers to help with planning, interviewing, technical stuff. So if you're interested, let me know. We see here, if you are interested in donating, which is also a great way to help us if you don't have the time, you can check out the Radio Fund page on the website or our Patreon, where you can get extended interviews at www.patreon.com/atheisttalk. For those who are patrons, please note in anything that has been come up that is late, should not be charged for. If you have, let me know. Minnesota Atheist is a 501c3 tax-deductible organization. We couldn't do this show without you, and we deeply appreciate your support. Music for Atheist Talk is by composer and member Brent Michael Davis and is used with permission. Please note, all opinions are the guests and hosts only and do not necessarily reflect Minnesota Atheist organization. With that, let's get back to our conversation with Charone. Charone.
Yes.
Excellent. So we were going to talk about the separation of church and state, but we have another call. This is like
awesome.
I know. This is almost a record. We have Lynette from Chaska with comments about guns and mental health.
I hope you can handle it. All these calls flooding in.
I know. A whole two of them. I'm just like, I feel like an internet star. I'm famous in Japan. But welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that, yes, we do have a mental health problem, and we also just happen to have an abundance of guns. So if you're statistically, if you're a white guy and you're angry, you just happen to have a lot of guns. So if you are angry about something, well, then that's a one way to, I guess, think that you're going to solve something. And that's the problem. So, yes, there is mental health issues, but if you have access to a gun and that seems easier than going to a counselor, then that's what seems to be happening, in my opinion.
Two problems at the same time.
And I will also add one other thing to that, which is probably sort of okay, this could be like construed any way you want it to, but I have a personal theory that a lot of the white men are just angry because they can't dance, and so the whole racial thing is about that. And I was at a concert last night for what's his name? I was just there was the Doobie Brothers and Santana, and it was such a difference between and it was mostly white older people like me. Mm-hmm. And when the Doobie Brothers were there, I think people were like kind of up more, and then when Santana was there, it was more ethnic, and it was just, and there was rap, and so I think a lot of the older people were like, what do we do now? And so there is that thing. It's like, I'm not saying people didn't enjoy the concert, but I'm just saying there's a difference with ethnicity and, I don't know, just the white culture and,
What white culture definitely is more stiff.
Yes, exactly.
Yep. There's the phrase in England, keep a stiff upper lip, which usually I think implies, when things are down, we trudge on and we will get through it. But there can be this other thing of when happy stuff is going on and stuff, it's hard for us to let loose. And I cannot speak for California, but in Minnesota, we're definitely a little stiff.
like a white church versus a black church.
Yes.
Big difference.
Well, thank you so much for your comments, Lynette.
All right. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I think that is an interesting thing, to think about. There is a lot of stiffness in the white culture.
Oh, so much. Yes. It's, we could talk about 1,000 examples of that, and it's not that like one is better or worse as far as like, the way people dance or whatever, but like our culture, like we definitely, like once we got the African influences in our music and our dance, they never left because we do kind of like that, it's just more fun apparently.
It is. But I definitely could see, and this is interesting because I just got to see Fiddler on the Roof. There's a line that Tevye says where he's he's like, how far do I bend before I break? And it's not. I am not going to be comparing what Tevye was going through to white culture because that is two very different things.
Right.
But a lot of these guys do seem to not be able to bend a lot. They're like a piece of angel hair spaghetti that hasn't been cooked. It's just a little bit, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm freaking out." And it's like, dude, just calm down. It's okay. I wonder if some of that is part of because I grew up more in the city. If part of that is because they're out kind of more in the burbs, where there isn't as much of some of that stuff going on, where it's like there's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses and a lot of unwritten rules.
It's very interesting, like, and it's not like, just for anyone listening who thinks we're picking on white people or picking on men. I mean, we're not saying that it's like that you're bad inherently or anything like that. It's just, there seems to be something going on. And I mean, people who are afraid to even have a conversation about privilege, because everyone has some privilege, and is underprivileged in some ways. And in America, most of us have a ton more privilege than like a lot of people in a lot of parts of the world, so any problem we think we have is usually pretty small compared to, and if we had to trade places with, let's say, somebody in Guatemala or whatever, there's people who are kind of like, the people who are like running from drug wars and drug cartels and whatever, like we probably would be we'd have a meltdown because we'd be like, I am not used to handling this kind of stress or, this kind of anything. And so, people have problems adjusting to change. Mm-hmm. And it's not because you're bad people. It's, but if we did have, like, definitely, the misogyny in our culture and the fact that the toxic masculinity, which has really hurt men, and made them like, oh, if you're emotional, I saw a meme that was like, hey, if you were to comfort a crying little boy instead of like yelling at him for being a wuss, what good might come of that in the world?
Oh, yeah. I actually saw a great meme about toxic masculinity this morning that made me smile. It was like, it doesn't pass the Rogers test. And they had Steve Rogers, the movie Steve Rogers, because I'm a comic book, not as big a comic book nerd as an Eli, but I know enough of my stuff. The movie version, because Captain America has several versions of iterations of him being all over the map politically. This one, I think, is the movie version, I think, is the best. But then they also have Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And it's like, if it can pass these two people, then you're fine. Toxic masculinity isn't being brave or helpful or, and what drives me nuts is so many times it's like, these are masculine traits. I'm like, no, those are just good human traits. There are plenty of people of all the genders who are brave and kind and hardworking and such. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's another thing. Like, people, I know that during the, like 100 years ago, female suffrage movement, men would be like, hey, it's so hard to be a man. Like, women don't understand. Like, and that's mostly BS, but it's also like there's so many expectations put on men that I can understand why they might have a kind of a breakdown, and then they're not allowed to show emotion.
And I think what we need to look at is that there are different issues that each gender has to go through. Mm-hmm. It's like I saw something yesterday. It was about the question of whether or not you should give up your seat on the bus for a pregnant woman. And the picture was she had to be anywhere from 6 to 8 months pregnant. So she's preggers. She's not like...
I had never heard that. I didn't know that there was nuance to that.
to how pregnant a person could be? Well, I mean...
usually if you can tell they're pregnant, like I don't go and be like, what trimester are you?
Yeah.
You can actually see third, fine.
Well, but I mean, because at a certain point, it does become it's always a medical condition, but at a certain point, it can become a very serious medical condition. And this whole thing was, there were so many of these guys in the comments going, well, equality, so I don't have to give up my seat. And I'm like, okay, but then does that mean that if a guy comes in with having heart arrhythmia or, who's out of breath because of asthma, does that mean I don't have to give up my seat for him? Because, well, medical condition, that doesn't matter. It's my seat. I sat first. No. It's like, just, I
don't get the equality argument in that context. Like, if it was a pregnant guy, I'd totally give up my seat for him too.
Exactly. And it's one of those where it's like, we are getting to the point with science that some of that stuff might actually start happening. Mm-hmm. So who knows, in 20 years, maybe we won't have much pregnancy at all because it will all be lab babies.
Brave New World.
Oh, that was a terrifying book. Trying to decide which one I didn't like more, 1984 or Brave New World. We read them back to back when I was in high school.
Oh, well, like, do you mean like just the prose or the worlds in the book? Because I would say I definitely prefer to be in Brave New World than 1984.
Yeah, it was the worlds in the book, and actually it was interesting because early on in the book, the teacher asked, and admittedly I was fairly Catholic at this point, but he asked, would you rather live in the society or would you rather be in what they called the savage lands where there weren't all these rules? And I was the only one who raised my hand for the savage lands because I was like,
really?
Yeah, well, like I said, I was fairly Catholic at the time, and I was like, wait, I can't.
Well, yeah, they were practicing religion, and they were the only ones.
Exactly, and I was like, well, no, because I still want to do this thing. And by the end of the book, pretty much everybody was raising their hand to go to the savage lands because they were like, no, this Brave New World, now that the glass is cracked and you can see all of the stuff behind it, no, this is bad.
Wow, so that looked good for you.
Well, it looked good for me, but now I look back and I'm like, okay, I still come to the same conclusion, but now for totally different reasons.
Right. You were able to convince them.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I did. I think the book did. However, we do have to go for one last break. We'll return with Charone from Habeas Humor. And I'm Hertzie Hertz. You're listening to Atheist Talk on KTNF AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Tune in to Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. We discuss national and local Native American news and events.
2 hours is still not long enough. Join Robert Pilot, Wendy Pilot, and me, Uncle Curtis.
Weekly correspondents include Winona LeDuc, John Greendeer, and Representative Mary Kanoush Bodine.
Broadcast live AM 950 Saturdays 1 to 3 p.m.
We'll be broadcasting live at the Minnesota State Fair August 24th.
At the International Market Bazaar.
Brought to you by Robbins Kaplan and Ho Chunk Nation.
We are awake.
Stand up, you've been sitting way too long.
Hello, this is Ralph Nader, host of the Ralph Nader Radio Hour. Join me and my guests every week when we dive deeply into the subjects that matter to you the most, but are rarely on the mass media. Every Monday at 6 a.m., and if you're not an early bird, 9 p.m. on Monday, right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, my name is Mickey McCabe. I'm the owner of Cucumbers Restaurant at 75th and France in Edina. Many who have dined at Cucumbers are of the opinion that our buffet has evolved from an older, more country-style buffet. They look at our 50-foot salad bar and can imagine a smaller ancestor with far fewer choices. An ancestor that didn't offer as many hot selections or have a bakery with fresh-baked muffins and breads. Didn't offer homemade soups and lacked the fresh fruit and ice cream bar that Cucumbers customers have grown to love. But some will say, where are the transitional buffets? In addition, they look at everything that we offer and say that Cucumbers is irreducibly complex. If you were to move just one of our offerings, the entire buffet wouldn't function. Well, I would like to think that Cucumbers was intelligently designed, since I helped design it. But at the same time, it truly is an evolutionary step up the buffet ladder. And as always, if you bring in your atheist newsletter or church bulletin, you will receive a $2 discount off the buffet price. Cucumbers, one heavenly buffet at 75th and France in Edina.
I've never met another atheist.
Sure you have. Non-believers make up 12% of the population.
Then where are they?
You can meet us at book clubs, pub crawls, discussion groups, movie nights, monthly meetings.
Okay, I get it. How am I going to keep track of all this?
Easy. Sign up for Minnesota Atheist Meetup Group and subscribe to AWE.
What's a meetup group?
Meetup is an online networking site that helps people build communities. We have over 700 members with at least 2 events every week.
And what is AWE?
It stands for Atheist Weekly Email. It comes out every Friday and lists everything that's going on.
How do I sign up?
Go to the Minnesota Atheists website, minnesotaatheists.org. On the left, click on the words Get Awe-Inspired.
And for the meetup?
Look for the red meetup badge on the right. Above it are the words, click here to check out the meetup group.
I'm sold. Minnesota Atheists, Meetup, and AWE. What's that website again?
minnesotaatheists.org.
Welcome back to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. You're tuned in to Atheist Talk, and I'm your host, Hertzie Hertz. I'm in studio, but joining me via Skype is Charone from Habeas Corpus. This is our
Habeas Humor.
So close. So close. So close. I was actually going to say this segment we need to plug you, or you need to plug.
Oh, thank you.
There needs to be a plug. But this is our final segment. If you're curious about Minnesota Atheists, you can check out the Minnesota Atheist website. We have previous episodes. You can browse articles, book reviews, peruse the calendar of upcoming events. You can also sign up for the Atheist Weekly email, which will give you links to upcoming events. We always have a ton of activities going on in Twin Cities and outlying suburbs. For example, today we have brunch at Cucumbers, which is my favorite Sunday. Let's see, I think that's all we have going on for big events right now, but we always have ongoing events like gaming, book clubs. Check out the meetup, check out the Facebook page, check out the website. If you enjoyed the show and all that Minnesota Atheist has to offer, do consider becoming a member while you're on the website. Membership has some great perks. Check out the hows and the whys on the website. And now back to our conversation with Charone. Charone, let's talk about habeas humor for a moment here.
Let's. Thanks.
The thing that all but one time I got it right. Ugh.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. Like I
keep wanting to say corpus. I don't know why.
Well, because that's the Latin phrase we all know from which the show's name is based.
Oh. So habeas humor. What do you talk about on that?
So the show is it's a podcast, but it's also now. We've started recording on YouTube, and we live stream for patrons, and then we put up the video, and then the audio goes on podcast, and it's HABEASHUMOR.com. If you go to the website, you can find the links for the YouTube, the audio, anything you want to know about the show. I am an attorney and also a comedian, so I do content that uses both of those things. So in the last episode, we talked about, Boris Johnson, the new Prime Minister of England, and his specialness. And
sorry, opinions are the guest and host only. Minnesota Atheist does not necessarily share these smirks and laughing that I do.
The Mueller testimony, I had pointed out, he had the report. Did the Congress people think that he was going to be like, you know what? I am so glad you called because I just remembered 5 other things I forgot to put in here. No, it's in the report.
I was going to say, I mean, from everything I've heard about Mueller, it was he's very methodical and such. I'm like, as somebody who's that organized and that, with that kind of thing, he's not going to forget something randomly. That would be me. That would be me forgetting something randomly, which is why I am not an investigator.
Yeah. Yeah, they had it's a big report. I mean, I can understand. I mean, there may have been other reasons to have him come in and testify, and that's fine, but it's also that's it. But so that we talk about various legal issues, like the one that you wanted to talk about with the Bladensburg cross in Maryland, the giant cement or concrete Christian cross that's on public land that shouldn't be because it's a huge symbol of Christianity in a public place.
Is it now, though? I mean...
Well, the Supreme Court has decided that because it's been there a really long time, and, hey, a cross can mean multiple stuff. Maybe it's a plus sign. Maybe this is a math statue.
We will definitely reschedule our separation of church and state, and hopefully this time it won't get sidetracked by not one, but 2.
2 mass shootings?
Good luck with
that.
I know.
I mean, let's not, shooters, can you knock it off for a while so we can have some conversations about other amendments of the Constitution?
Or you could just stop shooting people forever. That would be fine. I would be totally 100% okay with not shooting people.
The big ass. Stop the murder? Wow.
I know. Anyways. Let's
not get crazy here.
God, it's at the point where I'm not sure if I'm laughing or crying.
Yeah, both at the same time. We can do 2 things. Kind of, you have to, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I think that's one of the reasons why podcasts like yours and the Puzzle in a Thunderstorm and some of those where it's kind of a comedical look at the news has taken off, is because, you know, it's so hard to look at things straight. You know, you have to look at it with some form of something, or else we're just not going to make it.
It's, you know, everyone in this country is getting PTSD, pretty much most of us.
Yeah.
And just in time for us all to melt from the global warming.
Well, hey, you know, that might help with everything.
Mm-hmm. You can't, yeah, I mean, it's what is it that they say? Well, I mean, not they, but multiple, you know, the earth kind of figures out ways to, I mean, there's even that book, Earth Abides, I remember reading in high school. Like, you know, if people are messing things up, throwing things out of balance, you know, the earth will get rid of us.
Mm-hmm. Or another one that I like is, you know, the earth will technically survive. You know, even though we've done things, you know, there is going to be I would say there's potentially even going to be life after us. You know, it's just one of those where we're just not going to be around for it anymore, which I mean, we all know we're not going to be around for certain portions and such, but, you know, the human race
usually
is just
people are kind of interested in survival and propagation. Like, that's kind of the evolutionary thing. We want to survive to reproduce, and then have our children survive to reproduce, and that's inconsistent with what's happening.
Yeah, actually, was it last week or the week before? We actually had a person who talked about their book Birth Strike, which was all about the birth rate going down in America. Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating book. You should check it out.
I will. I remember there's a book that came out in the 90s called Gray Dawn that just talks about how the population of the world is aging because, you know, because people are having less babies. I mean, there are people in certain parts of the world that are having lots of babies, but on balance, it's, you know, especially like in America, I think we might be at a fertility rate of 1 or less than 1, meaning that every I guess they count it as every woman. How many babies in a lifetime do you have?
Yeah, and she actually addresses that in the book that we're at like 1 point something, and how the U.S. has handled this birth strike versus other countries have handled their own birth strikes, and how we're definitely not doing that. But we are at the end of the show. Charone, would you be willing to stick around for some Patreon stuff?
Of course.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So with that, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. With the news, join us for Cucumbers if you're able. We should have another exciting episode next week. And thank you very much for joining us.